Good afternoon. I am reviewing the fourth grade science video, the Science on Motion video. For the first question on how well does the teacher in your video demonstrate standards 2, 3, and 4, I noted that for standard 2, she created a respectful environment with her students. She certainly showed that she had control over her classroom. She asked the students questions and they raised their hands. Nobody was interrupting anyone. She certainly didn't talk over any of the students and appeared to really value their answers to her questions. Everyone appeared to be on task and very engaged into the lessons. For the third standard on knowing her content, there was excellent usage of academic language, both by the teacher and the students. So I think she must have done a really good job of using the vocabulary and relating the lessons. She started the lesson off with having the students use their prior knowledge that they had been taught, which is where I saw all of that academic support and language, which was awesome. For the fourth standard on facilitating the learning, she opened up with her questions and accessing that prior knowledge. She was building off of their responses and giving them excellent feedback. I also loved how she had the control over the lesson from the beginning and then slowly relinquished it to a student-led classroom. I thought those were definitely some of the stronger aspects of that lesson for her. For what suggestions I would have for this teacher, I thought she did a really awesome job. She had a great friendly tone, respectful with the students. They were respectful back. I love how she was building off of their responses and helping get them to relate the information they had learned to the current lesson of what they were going to do. When they weren't able to quite give her the language that she was looking for with her questions, she was able to lead them to that, and I thought that was really awesome. And given the number of students that she called on pertaining to those questions, showed that they were really taking away from the lessons. They had really been engaged in all of the lessons previously. Students also appeared to be very excited about the experiment they were conducting that day. I would say the only feedback that I saw that I could understand would be frustrating at the end when it was time for the students to clean up from their experiment. She had a lot of directions for them at that moment, and given that they were kind of coming off from all the excitement of the experiment, you could tell they weren't actively listening to her, and there was probably going to be some struggle with getting the supplies back where they needed to go. I could see there'd be a lot of questions of where did this go? Where did you say to put that? I would say maybe breaking it up and having them do one thing at a time, stop, do the next thing, stop, and just kind of keeping the class together that way. But I really thought she did a great job with conducting the lesson. The only other part was the students were a little bit confused on what to do. Now, on the positive note, she had the book for them that they could read for the instructions. So I think it was great that they had a reference. But I noticed one group, she did specifically have to go show them, like, nope, that's not what you were supposed to do. But she did give them the specific and actionable feedback that I noted in my recording, that she told them where to look and showed them what to do. So that was great. I loved that when the student had a question where he had read the directions clearly and he still didn't seem to understand exactly what he was supposed to do, she did pull him up and include him into the demonstration that she also did whole class, which was awesome because he was likely not the only student that didn't understand. So that way she was able to target that quickly, not only for that student, but for the others, so that everybody would be on the same page when it was time to start the experiment. So that was great. The strategies that I observed that I might use in my classroom, like I said, I loved how she opened her lesson using that prior knowledge. Sometimes it's really easy to just start a lesson and not think about how you're relating the prior knowledge to that lesson. So that's something that I definitely want to use. I love that it was student led, that they got to use, that they were conducting the experiment themselves, coming up with their own observations. My favorite part of the whole lesson was the higher order thinking questions she did. Not only did she include the higher order thinking questions when she asked the students about what they were predicting to happen with the weights on the vehicles, and they were really having to use some inferencing and that knowledge and vocabulary, and you could see the wheels were really turning for them. And she had the two boys specifically answer their predictions. And then I love that she included the whole class after that. Kind of like, well, because those were obviously two excellent predictions. Okay, were you thinking that the weight would slow the vehicle down, or were you thinking the weight would speed the vehicle up? Which is certainly what we're looking for in that science objective. And so she included the others that maybe weren't able to put all of that information together and let them pick which prediction they could see happening. So that way everybody was included, and it was able, and for those that, like I said, that couldn't come up with it on their own, were able to start thinking about that critically and really analyzing and evaluating. And I'm sure it helped them with their observations that they were making. I thought her classroom management was really strong. She certainly had that with itness that we look for in teaching. She did have to use her teacher face in a dominant tone a few times, maybe 2 or 3 times I think that I saw. It's unfortunate, necessary. I know my 8 years of teaching, I never like having to do it, but it's necessary, and you don't want to get off task, but quickly correct, and move on with that behavior, with that behavior management piece. So I thought that was great. And I also really liked what she, the way she was using, how the rapport was with the students and the respect that they were giving her, not only her, but each other. They were respecting the lesson, they were respecting their education, they were expecting her classroom rules, and I just thought that was really awesome. And they must really enjoy her, and she must do a really good job of getting her class rules and everything established to be able to do these experiments so calmly and focused. The biggest takeaways that will impact my future in teaching, I definitely want to spend more time thinking about how I can create higher order thinking in my classroom. We have a math curriculum we're currently working with, and I feel like that's kind of been my weakness. We get to a certain question where that is expressed with the higher order thinking, and I have not figured out how to use my feedback to get them where I need them to be thinking. And I feel like this teacher has done a really good job preparing her students for those types of questions, for them to be able to raise their hand and want to evaluate and critique and analyze. So I loved that part, and I would like to be able to do more of that myself. I also am really appreciative of the way she breaks up her lessons into those pieces. Like she's asking the questions, and then she's moving on to the portion where she's doing the guided practice, and then she's going to the portions where she's breaking up the steps in each piece. That way the students are always on task, understanding what's needing to be done. They're not just doing one thing completely for the whole time, which can be so boring and really cause students to go off track. So those are some things that I would definitely like to focus on that I took away from the lesson. Thank you for your time. This was a lot of fun. I appreciated the lesson.